Hello, and welcome to the New England Chargers Transplant. My name is Jalen Holmes, and today we'll be having conversations about the Chargers offensive line. Um, we made our additions in free agency. We made our additions in the draft. Um, addition in the draft. Drafting Branson Taylor, and then as far as our additions in the free agency, signing Mekhi Becton, signing Andre James, to contracts this offseason. Mekhi Becton had a phenomenal year with the Eagles as far as what he was able to do coming out, making the transition to guard and playing at right guard. He's a mauler in the run game, fluid feet, good hands, and he was great and provided, was part of the offensive line that provided a great year for Saquon Barkley and for the Eagles. The Eagles passing game, and having him being added to our team is a great addition for the Chargers to have, especially pairing him with another great, great player in Joel. That right side of the line is they're big guys, 6'7" and 6'8", over 300 pounds. They're going to maul in the run game, and they're going to complement each other really well. Um, and then also adding Andre James. Andre James, as far as last year, he didn't have the year that he wanted to really have, getting injured and then losing his the starting spot to Jackson Tyler Johnson. But he has played good football in the past, and typically within, you know, if the offense is poor, the lower the ratings will do, and obviously his PFF grades weren't really good for the 2024 season, but they want to take the chance in him to to as far as getting him back to that good play that he can get to and has played before in the 2023 season for sure. Um, you know during the phases of training camp, they've been experimenting with Zion Johnson. They like Joe Ortiz has had conversations of trying Zion Johnson at center, taking snaps for Herbert, and that's has been seen. Andre James has been doing as well. Just within that conversation of doing that on his team, it creates some questions as far as what they really plan to do. It's kind of confusing because it's like, okay, Bradley Bozen hasn't played guard in a while. Andre James hasn't played guard ever. He's always been a center. And, especially with the issues that Zion Johnson has as far as picking up stunts and whatnot. And it's kind of his mental side of the game that he needs to work on and get there within his game. And putting him at center, I don't think I think it would overload him really as far as making calls for different pass protections and calling out certain things on the line, which is the center's part of the center's responsibility. I don't know what they plan to do once it comes to that, especially with guys that haven't played left guard. Obviously, they have certain guys that have one positional flexibility. They may try Trey Pipkins at left guard if there's something within that with that realm of what they want to do. But signing Andre James and having a guy like Bradley Bozen doesn't really make sense to have Zion Johnson, make the move to center, which is why I feel like Zion might just stick at left guard at the end of the training camps and before the regular season starts. Uh, that's why that part of things are confusing once it comes to that. Um, just talking about Zion, like how we were talking about how he struggled pretty badly like last season, and he didn't really make the leap that we wanted him to. Zion Johnson put up an overall of 65.7 PFF grade, a 63.6 pass blocking grade, which landed him 61st out of 136 guards, a run block grade of 64.8, which landed him 55th out of all guards. And as we know, that isn't really good numbers. We want to see better numbers out of him. We want to see him make improvements. And, you know, out of what Jim Harbaugh preaches and what he wants out of his offense lines, the good guys, quality guys that are out there and can enforce that run game. As far as what they want to do and what as far as what they have done. Picking up Najee Harris, picking up Amarion Hampton to bolster this run game, and they want to make that an emphasis of the offense of what they want within, what Greg Roman and the offense, and what they want to do with the receivers and how they want to establish their culture as a team. And Zion Johnson isn't really, living up to that as far as quite yet. And hopefully during this off season, he can make those leaps and jumps to be able to make be a good starter. But at this point in time, he hasn't shown that since he's came into the league, for sure. There still is also guys that they may and can sign in free agency. There's Brandon Sheriff, Shaq Mason, Will Hernandez. Those guys are still available in free agency. To be slight upgrades to Zion Johnson, and we don't know if they'll sign them or not. They still do have those three guys still have their questions. Brandon Sheriff, um, he's aging. He's an aging player. He's 33 years old. We don't really know if we want to go in that direction because obviously they want to obviously stay younger. Will Hernandez, he has some injury questions to him. Shaq Mason has some injury questions to him as well. So going in that direction doesn't seem like there'd be slight upgrades for now, just for what for the current future within this current season. But obviously they want eventually want to get younger. They want to draft guys that are younger and that don't have much injury history as those guys will, and the aging factor of those guys as well. They're they want to create a young they want to create a young injury free kind of line, offensive line, and they have made great improvements going towards that. Mekhi Becton has had some of those injury questions, and which is why we're hoping that he can stay healthy because once he's healthy, he's really really good. And as we've seen that in the for the Eagles and them going all the way to the Super Bowl winning with him, you know, um, yeah, yeah. To start talking about the center position, like you said, that experimentation of with Zion Johnson is confusing. We signed Andre James, and obviously Bradley Bozeman, him himself, he's played all 17 games. He has that their everyday embodiment as far as the acronym, TED, with what Harbaugh wants with a player, consistency, showing up and he's also a leader. He's a leader in the locker room, and Jim Harbaugh raves about him all the time. He loves Brandon Bozeman because he is playing. He played all 17 games. He has, you know, been a leader for the offensive line and what they do for what he does for the Chargers, and he embodies that. But there's obviously some questions as far as he's getting up there in age, one, and also his performance. His performance hasn't been all too well. He's had some good games, but a lot of times it's been more bad games, which is where there needs to be something done from that standpoint as far as truly drafting guys to improve the drafting and signing guys, improve the interior offense line, to make sure that what happened in Houston game doesn't happen anymore. There is some things that need to go forth, and as far as you know, if it's Andre James, if it's Bradley Bozeman, if it's Zion Johnson, or maybe he's signing another guy, there are some things that need to be done there to improve that area of the interior offensive line. And like I said, Mekhi Becton signing helped that. It's helping that. Those questions with those two guys, um, could you know kind of the same fall into the same things that we struggled with last year with an interior offense line. I'm sure that there's be some improvement to our run game, as adding Najee Harris, adding Amarion Hampton. Those guys are those guys have been consistent. They have heavy workloads. They've had heavy workloads for the past teams and have played have played a lot of games and had a lot of carries, but would be sustainable, you know, running backs and not being as injured. Najee Harris has played 17 games consistently through the beginning of his career and hasn't missed time. Um, and Omarion Hampton, um, he had a huge workload in his college seasons, running over 300 carries in his last season in college. He can handle that. And as far as them having their 1-2 combo, it would be great to obviously you don't want to overload one guy, so they will have split carries as far as what they do on for the running game for sure. Um, you know, you don't want to overload obviously you don't want to overload one guy over another, especially when they both have, as far as talent wise, they'll both be good running backs in the league for sure. So going through that process of what they want to establish within the game plan of the offensive line is going to be a 1-2 combo with their games, and they should both complement each other really well. Um, yeah, and then also with us, drafting Branson Taylor, he's going to create some added depth, and um, hopefully he can, make the developments within his game. And obviously, we probably won't be expecting him to make leaps to becoming a starter, especially considering all of the all of the guys that we do have on our roster, Jamari Saller, Trey Pipkins, having those guys he probably would have to fight for some roster spot to complete over those guys. But having our coaching staff, he can possibly make the roster and make some competition for the left guard position, possibly over like guys like Trey Pipkins, if there is a move from Zion Johnson to center, possibly, or some type of move within the interior guys. But he can make a fight for depth on our depth. You can make the fight for depth for to be our backup guard, stuff like that. To make the team for sure. And I feel like he can possibly be able to do this within our coaching staff and what he can learn from Mike Devlin, um, and what we do as far as our offensive line for sure, for sure. Um, yeah, Jordan Ortiz, within our entire offense he has done the necessary things as far as improving our blocking, our blocking and our offense in general. Picking up Will Disley, phenomenal run blocker, and the Tucker Fisk. He's a great run blocker as well. And with the experimentation of Scott Matlock, and he ended up becoming our fullback. And for what we want to do for the run game, having those guys that can block really well can open up the run game. It's more than just the five guys on the offense line. It's the tight ends and the fullback that help support them as well. And having those guys can really help within establishing the run game that they want to establish. And you know establishing the run game comes with and aids with the passing game as well. You know, at drafting Trey Harris, drafting Ladd McConkey last year, and and then we picked up Mike Williams. We have Keontae Lambert Smith, and then we had also drafted Rondé Gadsden. Having those guys to improve those pass game can also, help out with the offensive line of how they want to do and the game plan that Greg Roman wants to implement. And, as far as the play action, the play action and the offensive line can, be there and be comfortable because the defense is going to start having to guess what we will do within our running game and within our passing game. We want to we won play action, I think, second most out of every team in the league, and that's what we want to do. As far as we're gonna have our Mauler in on Najee Harris, just running it down, running it up the gut, smashing them, and then we have our home run hitter and Omarion Hampton, and that's going to be a great way to establish what we want to do and help support the offensive line. And I hope within the interior with Zion Johnson and Bradley Bozeman, or if it's Zion Johnson and Andre James, or whatever combination of the interior offensive line, we can make those players can make the improvements to the offensive line, and so we can form a great five guys to improve that. And I feel like within our coaching staff, I have all the most trust to be able to, I have all the most trust in them to have them make the improvements to for those guys. And um, I hope that within next season, the stuff we've seen within the Texans game, you know, doesn't happen again. Obviously, this would be sometimes where we're gonna face like hard defensive lines, like the Steelers defense line, the Broncos defense line will face those guys. But if they can hold up really well and have a better game overall, have better games overall, it would like make great offense. We would improve our offense and make our offense greater for sure, for sure. I think this is time to wrap up our conversations about the offensive line. Like how we talked about the interior. Our interior is the biggest question that we have, and then going forward, we'll be able to see through OTAs and maybe if there's going to be some free agent signings and you know to improve that interior offense line maybe throughout OTAs. We'll have to wait and see for that for sure. But I think it was a great conversation just talking about the offensive line and what could come forth with them for sure. So, this has been the New England Chargers transplant. Have a nice day. Peace.